Mason County, Texas, in August 1925. The summer heat was relentless, yet it didn't deter the crowds that had gathered at the local rodeo grounds. Families, ranchers, and townsfolk filled the stands, their excitement palpable as they awaited the start of the festivities. The dusty air was heavy with anticipation, but the event everyone truly came to see was not the usual rodeo spectacle. No, the highlight was something extraordinary, something that promised to connect the onlookers with the raw, untamed spirit of the Old West. At the center of this excitement was an unassuming older man, standing casually among a group of locals. His graying hair and gentle demeanor did not immediately set him apart from his peers, but his clothing hinted at a deeper story. Dressed in buckskin leggings and a fringed buckskin shirt, he looked like someone who had stepped out of another era. His posture was upright and confident, and there was something in his movements, subtle but distinct, that spoke of a life unlike those of the men around him. He laughed, exchanged jokes, and appeared to enjoy the camaraderie of his neighbors. Yet beneath this affable exterior lay a history that had made him a living legend. The man's name was Herman Lehman, and his life story was known far and wide. To those who didn't know him personally, he was a local curiosity, a relic of a bygone era when the Texas frontier was a dangerous and volatile land. But to those who knew his story, he was much more. A man who had lived through unimaginable hardship, had been shaped by violence, and had emerged from it all as a survivor with a unique place in history. As the event unfolded, Herman mounted his horse. But he didn't do so in the typical manner of the American riders around him. Instead of using a saddle and bridle, he leapt onto the horse bareback, controlling it with a single rein tied to a simple halter. What struck the crowd as particularly odd was the way he mounted, from the right-hand side, a habit that was virtually unheard of among American riders, but common among certain Native American tribes. The crowd fell silent, their attention riveted on this man who seemed so different from anyone they had ever encountered. Once astride his horse, Herman's transformation was complete. His gentle smile faded, replaced by a piercing gaze that seemed to see everything and everyone in the arena at once. When he donned a feathered headdress intricately decorated with beads and ribbons, the crowd gasped. The headdress was more than an ornament. It was a symbol of the life he had once led, a life that, even decades later, still defined him. As the crowd watched in awe, Herman gave a loud war whoop and spurred his horse into a gallop. A yearling calf, weighing around 300 pounds, was released into the arena. The animal, confused and frightened, darted this way and that, seeking an escape from the strange and chaotic scene. Herman pursued it with precision, his horse responding to the subtlest cues from his knees and feet. Without breaking stride, he drew a short, powerful bow and loosed an arrow. The shaft struck the calf's heart with deadly accuracy, and the animal collapsed almost instantly. But Herman wasn't finished. In one fluid motion, he dismounted, knife in hand. He quickly slit the calf's throat to bleed it out, then opened its abdominal cavity. To the astonishment and, for some, the horror of the onlookers, he reached into the carcass, pulled out the liver, squeezed bile from the gallbladder onto it, and ate it raw. The act was both shocking and mesmerizing, a visceral reminder of the brutal realities of survival in a world most of the audience could scarcely imagine. For Herman Lehman, this demonstration was more than a spectacle. It was a connection to a life he had lived and in many ways still longed for. The skills he displayed that day had been honed not in arenas but on the harsh Texas plains, in the crucible of conflict and survival. To the audience, it was a glimpse into a romanticized past. To Herman, it was a bittersweet reminder of a freedom he had once known, a freedom that came at great cost. Herman Lehman's story began in 1859 in Mason County, Texas, a rugged and unforgiving land that demanded resilience and grit from its settlers. Born to Ernst and Augusta Lehman, Herman was the third of 8 children. The family lived on a modest farm, raising livestock and cultivating crops to make a living in a region where danger was ever present. The death of Herman's father when he was still a young boy left his mother to shoulder the burden of raising her children in such a harsh environment. In 1863, Augusta remarried a man named Philip Buchmeyer, who became a father figure to Herman and his siblings. Life on the frontier was not easy. but the Lehmans worked hard to build a future for themselves. The children were expected to contribute to the family's livelihood, whether by tending livestock, planting crops, or guarding the farm from the constant threat of predators. For young Herman, these responsibilities were part of daily life, and he performed them with the same determination that would later define his extraordinary journey. May 16, 1870 began like any other day on the Lehman farm. 11-year-old Herman and his 8-year-old brother, Willie, were tasked with guarding the family's sheep and keeping crows away from the cornfield. The boys were only a few hundred yards from their family's cabin, and there was no indication that anything unusual would happen. But in the blink of an eye, their lives changed forever. A small band of Apache warriors, led by a chief named Colonel Carnivust, appeared on the horizon. Moving with the stealth and speed of seasoned raiders, they descended upon the unsuspecting boys. Herman fought back as best he could, but Carnivust struck him over the head with a pistol, knocking him unconscious. The brothers were tied to horses, and within moments they were being carried away at a gallop. Back at the cabin, Augusta and Philip were thrown into panic. Their sons had vanished without a trace, and the vast Texas plains offered little hope of finding them. The family sought help from local authorities and military units, but the search seemed hopeless. The Lehmans could only pray that their boys would somehow survive. As the Apache raiders made their way across the plains, they were pursued by a group of Buffalo Soldiers, African-American troops who had been stationed in the region to protect settlers from Native American raids. These soldiers, many of them former slaves who had enlisted after the Civil War, were known for their bravery and tenacity. In a brief but intense skirmish, the Buffalo Soldiers engaged the raiding party, managing to disrupt their progress. During the chaos, young Willie fell from his captor's horse. Alone and terrified, he wandered through the wilderness, surviving by sheer determination and luck until he eventually found his way back to his family. His return was a bittersweet moment for the Lehmans. While they were overjoyed to have one son back, Willie brought no news of Herman other than a chilling statement. "Herman has gone on, Mama." They took him on. For Herman, the journey into captivity was a harrowing ordeal. Dehydrated, sunburned, and frightened, he endured physical abuse and relentless work. On the third night of his captivity, the raiding party slaughtered a calf, and Carnivust forced Herman to consume the curdled milk from its stomach. When Herman vomited, he was beaten and made to eat his own vomit. Such acts of cruelty were designed to break the spirits of captives, stripping them of their former identities and preparing them for a life of servitude. But Herman was resilient. Despite the physical and emotional abuse, he began to adapt to his new reality. Over time, he learned the ways of the Apache, earning their respect through his resourcefulness and determination. He was eventually adopted into the tribe, a process that marked the beginning of a profound transformation. Herman's assimilation into the Apache way of life was both a survival strategy and a testament to his adaptability. Over time, he became more than just a member of the tribe. He became a warrior. He learned to hunt, fight, and survive in the unforgiving environment of the Texas plains. His skill with a bow and arrow, his horsemanship, and his courage in battle earned him the respect of his Apache peers. But life among the Apache was not without its challenges. Herman faced internal conflicts within the tribe, including a dispute with a medicine man that ultimately led to the man's death. This event forced Herman to flee, and he sought refuge among the Comanche, a tribe known for its fierce resistance to encroaching settlers. Under the leadership of Chief Quanah Parker, the Comanche welcomed Herman into their ranks. As a Comanche warrior, Herman continued to live a life defined by conflict and survival. He participated in raids against settlers, fought battles against rival tribes, and embraced the nomadic lifestyle of the Comanche. For nearly a decade, he lived as a Native American, fully immersing himself in their culture and traditions. When Herman finally returned to the world of settlers, his reintegration was fraught with challenges. The skills and identity he had developed during his years among the Apache and Comanche set him apart, making him both a curiosity and a legend. In his later years, he shared his story through demonstrations, public appearances, and written accounts, offering a unique perspective on a tumultuous period in American history. Herman Lehman's life was a testament to the resilience of the human spirit and the capacity to adapt to even the most extreme circumstances. His journey from a captive boy to a legendary warrior, and finally, to a bridge between two worlds, is a story that continues to captivate and inspire.